You don't wake up. You who are listening right now, you don't wake up. You wake up from yourself. Yeah, it's a big one. You wake up from yourself. The idea, you have an idea of who you are. That idea is constantly changing. It goes through fluctuations. Sometimes it feels good about itself. Sometimes it feels bad about itself. Sometimes it criticizes, mostly criticizes, because the body-mind identity is by virtue and by nature quite negative. And that's good news for all of the, let's say, industries, corporations that make profits out of people's fears. Because the ego, meaning the idea you have of who you are, which is a construct, it's a concept. You are not a concept. You can't be a concept. You have to see that for yourself. You think in concepts. You've been trained to think in concepts, but you were not born with a single concept. Did you know that? Were you born with a single concept? Absolutely not. Every concept has been conditioned in your mind. It's been programmed in your mind. Every concept you've ever had. I received a text from a dear, dear brother who's in Sweden. And it touched me so much because I've known this man for, wow, 35 plus years. And it was very heartfelt. And he's asking for advice, he's asking for help. And his question is universal. So I felt it was very apropos that I take the time to answer that here with you as well, because this might help you. He says, can you explain, so let's take, it's a long email, I'm just going to take some sections, the most relevant. I translated it from Swedish. Can you explain exactly which exercises I can do to try to understand the thing about not being able to observe yourself? So you are the one who is observing, but you cannot really observe yourself. Muji, beautiful, enlightened human being, says, the eyes that can see, they can see everything, but they can't see themselves, right? Like, I'm not talking about looking in a mirror and looking at your eyes. These eyes have been looking out throughout the existence of this body-mind structure, but it cannot see itself. He uses also an example of a scale. Again, this is Muji. You can weigh everything, but you can't weigh yourself, can you? I mean, the scale can't weigh itself. The scale can weigh everything, but the scale can't weigh itself. Everything you're observing is not you, but you can't observe yourself. So the fact is, and we'll get to this, I'll give you exercises. So and he says, how do you get rid of the ego? And how do you know when you have to let go of the ego? And what causes one's ego to worry? All of this, my dear brother, is all mental. It's all conceptual. You're stuck in concepts. All of this questions. You're stuck in concepts. Which is not, you've been programmed to do that. So remember, the idea you have of who you are is not what wakes up. If you still take yourself to be your body and your mind and your structure, that will not wake up. You wake up from that. You wake up from the delusion. It's a delusion. It's an illusion. What is an illusion? An illusion is something that is very fleeting and is not permanent, and that is observed and is seen to not be real. That's an illusion. The idea you have of who you are, the person which you've taken yourself to be, and that you've protected, is less significant than even a ghost. It's less real than a ghost. And how do you know that? You look for it. You sit down and you inquire, and you inquire, and you observe with detachment, and you inquire, and you observe with detachment, and you inquire. Take 3 minutes, take 5 minutes, go to a still place, go to a quiet place, sit down, take 3 breaths, and ask yourself, who am I? Who am I? Where am I? what am I? And then don't look for the answer in the mind, because you will never, ever, ever, ever get the answer in your mind. Drop the mind. I had a beautiful conversation with a wonderful soul last night on a one-on-one, and I told her this: if you are American, I've lived in the United States for a while, this means time out. In American sports, I can't believe I'm using a sports analogy, my goodness. But anyway, in American sports, when they need a break, like a basketball game, the coach goes like this: time out. That means you stop what you're doing. You drop the ball. You don't continue playing. You stop playing the game, you drop the ball, and then you huddle, right? You come together. So give yourself a timeout. If your mind is going crazy, if it's going taka taka taka, if it just is incessant, because that's what it does. The more you feed it, how do you feed it? By giving it attention. That's how you feed your thoughts. You give them attention. It's your power. You're doing it. You're just not conscious of that. So just stop. Time out. Drop the ball. You're not allowed to play anymore. Give yourself a timeout for a few minutes. This is what I told this lovely being yesterday on a phone call, on a video call. Give yourself a timeout. And once you give yourself a timeout, that means you're dropping all of your thoughts and concepts. You can come back and pick them up if you want to, which I would never want to, but all of the stress, all of the stories, they're all stories, they're thoughts, right? And they're coming and going. They're coming and going. They have no permanence. The weight, the heaviness that they feel that they have is what you give to it. That you need to drop. Just drop it. Time out. Sit still. Give yourself a timeout. Sit still. Just drop everything. Just for a few minutes. You can pick up all those thoughts again. Believe me, they don't go anywhere. Absolutely, they don't go anywhere. Actually, they sometimes come back with a vengeance, right? But they're not you. And the less current, the less energy, the focus, your attention is like a current of electricity. The less electricity you give to it, it shuts off. So shut off the source of energy, shut off the fuel for the mind. If you want to make a car stop working, what do you do? You just stop giving it gasoline. It's going to come a point you're going to stop. If you don't give it any more gasoline, will the car go? No. Stop feeding, stop giving gasoline, stop giving energy, stop giving so much focus to your thoughts. Why does it happen? Because everything in society uses that. That's also how we're controlled, by the way. I don't want to get into that because now we're going to weird conspiracy theories, but that's not what this channel is about. But do realize that if you are identified with your mind, people can control you very easily. That's another thing. Because the mind lives in fear. Why does the mind live in fear? Because it's not real. Because it's an illusion. The idea we have of who we are is an illusion. The idea you have of who you are is an illusion. That's why it's fearful. That's why it's not stable. How can anything that's really not real be stable? And yet we base our whole lives on that little me, which is a fiction. That's why when you wake up, it's like, oh, wow. You know? It's like, wow. That was a complete story. It was just a fiction. It hits you like that, at least for me. Let's go back to this text. He says, I sometimes feel that if people are a little offensive to me, my ego kicks in right away. I want you to teach me to live a life where no one can influence how I feel, be it criticism or praise. I want to stand firmly rooted in myself and not be influenced by those external factors. Everybody, unfortunately, once you have established a body-mind identity, and once that identity in your view is very real, then of course you're going to react from the contrived, from the made-up me, because that's all you know. Little do you know that you've been observing that whole time and that you created that one. You created the one who takes offense. You created that. Now I'm saying you, I'm not talking about the little me created a little me. In fact, When you're born with a blank slate. It's called a tabula rasa, empty. That's when you can absorb so much. That's why the vulnerability of children, which is such a beautiful and innocent thing, right? Like animals too. They have this beauty, they have this innocence, they have this vulnerability. But then the machine starts feeding. You are this, you are that. You can't do this, you can't do that. You need to do this, you need to go that. You have to do there, you have to do this. You have to save this much money. You can't go to that. Blah, 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 blah. Some things are useful, but it's all programming. Programming, programming, programming. More and more and more and more. No wonder we are so stressed and neurotic. Drop it. Time out. When it's overwhelming, and it will get overwhelming, stop it. Go to a quiet place. If you can, if you have the time, if you can spare yourself 1 or 2 minutes a day, that's it. You don't have 1 minute while you're walking and sitting in your car just before you start your car. That's a really good place, because the car's the quiet. You know how that feeling is when you close the door and it's so quiet in the car. That's a good space. It's nice because you're isolating a little bit the sounds, and it helps. To wake up from the idea you have of who you are. You will never wake up. The idea you have of who you are disappears when you wake up. Then it's seen through. I can still feel traces of the ego. I want to feel good about myself without external factors controlling it. I want to feel good about myself without external factors controlling it. You are creating those external factors. You can control it immediately because you're the one creating the external factors. You are the one using the conditioning that is using the conditioning to navigate the external factors. I want an inner peace and security that is constant. You already have an inner peace and security that is constant. It's already here. Inner peace is already here. It's already constant. In fact, that's all there is here right now, is just inner peace. It's just being clouded by a made-up identity. So that's why you need to find out who that person is. People sometimes don't go deep enough. And it's not an effort thing. You have to, it might feel like it's an effort in the beginning, but then when you see that identity is totally made up, it's like we walk around, we're born like this. Here's the conditioning, the shell, the name, your identity, your age, and we become closed, very protective of this fiction inside, right? So when you give yourself time out, you let go, inquire, find out what's here. When you inquire, you slowly relax. Relax your body, relax your breathing, and you see there's nothing here. I'm protecting nothing. It's a shell of nothing. It's a shell of thoughts and conditioning. Let it go. And see what you find. So my dear brother, to you and everybody else, take this advice. Take a minute and observe. Observe with detachment, because the more you do that, it is a practice. That's your practice. Every day, when you can, when you remember. Don't force it. Also put that practice into place when you feel really stressed. Then find out who is stressed. I feel so stressed. I feel so stressed. Okay, time out. Time out. All right, let me sit down. I'm so stressed. Just breathe a bit. Let the stress be there. Don't fight it. What you resist will persist, okay? So don't resist it. And if you still resist, don't resist the resistance. Don't resist the resistance, because the second you don't resist the resistance, let yourself resist. Okay, there's resistance, whatever, there it is. The second you do that, you let go, because you create space. It's only through space that you can see. If it's too claustrophobic, you're not going to see anything. You need to give it space. How do you give it space? Time out, drop it, sit down, just breathe. You can always pick it up. It's right there. All of this neuroticism, it's right there. And pretty much it's just going to come back. So you don't have to worry about the neurotic little me. It's there, unless you totally see it, until you knock its foundation out. Remember the building, the video I had about the building, the edifice and the foundation? Knock the foundation out. See that the foundation is actually not real. Because if the foundation is not real for the idea you have of who you are, that building, which is akin to your ego and everything that you're building, you're trying to build conceptually. It's all concepts. That conceptual model collapses. Thank you so much for your text. Please let me know if this helps. Bless you. Have a beautiful day.